Well, originally I was drawn to the story by the book by David Grann, and which delineates this extraordinary tragedy in American history that I really knew nothing about. And the script was given to me, and this was in 2017. And I understood immediately that trying to approach this material, particularly the nature of this tragedy, one would have to do it from the point of view of the Osage, and not the Osage as victims, but as people, to really get to know who they are, to understand as much as possible the values and their appreciation of the world around them and the life. And so at one point, while we were working on finishing the film Irishman, we talked about where is the heart of the story. This systemized kind of racist tragedy occurred, and yet many of the white people that were there who were perpetrating it were still very good friends with some of the Osage. So what is that about? As part of being a human being. And Leo said, well, what about Ernest, the character who, Ernest Burkhart, whom he plays in the film now? He was going to play another character. He said, what about him? Because he's married to Mollie. He had to have had something to do with these murders. We don't know what to this day. And yet, she stayed with him. And I said, well, she loved him, and he loved her. Did he really love her? I think he did. Is he weak, strong, whatever? And he was manipulated by his uncle. Okay, we know all that. But by going into the love story, which, by the way, was more than hinted at, but was explained to me by the Osage themselves. They said, don't forget, this is they were in love, Ernest and Mollie. And I said, well, let's find out how. I don't know how people could be in love. You know, I can't describe that. It's just that we can't express it. But there's something, a bond between the two of them where she trusted and trusted to the very end. And I think that's part of the tragedy of trusting people who come from a culture where we think we're superior. And we think the other cultures have to be, I'm American European, so it's the European culture, the Western culture is superior, so everything else gets wiped out. It's not that simple, because there are values there, and it's part of the human condition. And so for us, this project was something that, as you say, shine a light, certainly, on this time in history. And coincidentally, in 1921, while this was happening in Pawhuska and in Fairfax, Tulsa was burning. There was the Black Wall Street was going, and we didn't know anything about that until a couple of years ago. And so this was systematic, you know. The country was made by white Europeans. That's it. Yeah, but the democracy and freedom for all and the pursuit of happiness for all, you see. This is what we wanted to get into, and the only way I thought we could do it was to go to the heart of it, really. I was going to say minimalist in a way. Go from the center and then come out, not from the outside in. Well, as I said, I felt that when I first read, when I looked, we even took the book, I said, if you're going to be dealing with indigenous people, I said, we're going to have to know them. We simply have to know them. And so what that means is they have to be with us, you know, and it's got to be different from the way other films were made about them or about their world. And so automatically, once the script was in progress, we sent a group of people to meet Chief Standing Bear. And then I was brought out to meet them just before the COVID epidemic. And so once meeting them, I understood that I understood even more that we have to be extremely careful, and not, as I pointed out earlier, not stuffy, prissy with everything. That has to be lived in and felt. And so in learning about how a blanket is worn and what the designs of a blanket mean, we learn who the people are. And we get to know each other. And it really was interesting. It really was. And it's something that's always fascinated me about American indigenous people and First Nations. And so I was, fascinated by it. And I try to get as much as I could into what they put into the film. They also, as you know, so many of the Osage not only were in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, making, designing and helping making the costumes and all the props. Because a lot of this had been forgotten. Even the language has been forgotten. There's only Van Bighorst and Chris, who's the other guy. He taught the actors how to speak Osage, including Leo and De Niro. And so they were learning their language again. And the young people are coming back, you see, for their rituals now. And the young people are the young Osage are coming back and understanding now the value of who they are and what their nation was and still is, And so this is something that happened, a kind of a rebirth in a way, we hope. I found that Grann's book comes from the FBI point of view. And Hoover sent in Tom White, did a good job. White. He found these guys, whatever. He worked it out. In order to understand that, you read the book. But the issue is, they did make a mark by going into that town and stopping Bill Hale and Ernest and Byron and all of them, the Schoen brothers, all of them. But as I say, Byron, there was a hung jury. He didn't go to jail. The Schoen brothers went to practice in Colorado Springs for the rest of their lives. They were fine. Bill Hale was released on good behavior through the Truman administration, the Prendergast machine in the Midwest that runs that political group that Truman came out of. And Ernest stayed the longest, in jail. But for me, I felt that coming out of what the FBI did, they began the story of the FBI with the Osage murders, which became the story of the American outlaws of the Midwest, Babyface Nelson and Bunny and Clyde and Ma Barker, and all of these that the FBI became G-men, and they became theater. They became theater, and theater went right to the public, entertainment, radio shows. They actually had radio shows on the Osage murders, and I have the scripts, and I said, "Well, this is it. We have to end it as, in a sense, the tragedy becomes theater, and it supports the law that went in there. They did go in, it's true, and they did get them, but it became theater, and I felt ultimately it had to end with the obituary of Mollie, because that brings it way down. In other words, nothing is solved. It's an ongoing problem. You see, we don't want to just end it and say, okay, everybody's in jail. No. Yeah, they went to jail, yes. It doesn't matter. It's an ongoing problem. And so I chose to do that obituary myself, thinking about my own family, thinking about immigrants coming into this country, thinking about my grandparents who were immigrants who came here and the troubles they had. And somehow it just hit. I don't know what happened. And I said, I have to take the responsibility of trying it myself and bringing it back to the earth, But the radio show was a very popular, gangbusters, the G-Man, all that sort of thing. And of course, the FBI became very, very somewhat difficult in the 50s and, 60s in terms of controlling people and blackmailing. But in any event, that was Mr. Hoover. But he started there. He started there with the Osage, and he got them. And so I felt, in an odd way, the tragedy becomes grist for the mill of entertainment. That's all it is. And then it's dispensed with, And so I said, no, we have to make a mark here somehow.